One summer day, Kazu, not his real name, and his friends went for a drive. On their way back, Kazu and his friends stopped at a drive-in movie theater, but a terrible incident awaited them. A strange drive. One summer day, Kazu and his friends were bored, so they decided to go for a drive somewhere. Without any special purpose, they decided to go to Nagano by driving on ordinary roads. Instead of using the expressway, the members were Kazu, friend A, friend B, and friend C. When Kazu was bored, these four would usually get together. When the four of them arrived in Nagano, they ate at a random place for no particular reason, and as the sun was setting, they decided to go home. As they took turns driving and relying on the car's navigation system, friend A, who was driving, asked Kazu in the passenger seat, "Isn't this road strange? Is the navigation system following the right route?" Then Kazu looked out the window and noticed that something was wrong. Just as friend A had said, the road they had driven on before was wide and clean, but the road they were on now was narrow and the guardrails were covered in rust. There were cracks here and there, and weeds were growing between the cracks. However, the car's navigation system showed that they were going straight without taking a side road. Kazu replied optimistically, "Well, it's a rural mountain road, so these things happen." So friend A continued on as before. However, after about 30 minutes of driving on the same road, with no cars passing, friend A began to get worried. As they continued driving, they finally saw the lights of drive-in movie theater ahead of them. They could also see several cars parked in the drive-in's parking lot. Feeling relieved, they parked their car in the drive-in's parking lot. It seemed that this drive-in was unmanned and there were no employees around. Friends A and C went to the restroom, while Kazu and B went to the rest area next to the vending machine. However, when Kazu tried to open the entrance to the rest area, he discovered a palm-sized moth resting there. It was strange and unnatural to have such a large moth there in the middle of summer, but the pattern on the moth's wings was also strange. Moths usually have round, eye-like patterns on their wings, but this moth's wings looked like a human face. In particular, the eyes weren't just round. They were shaped like real human eyes. Seeing this creepy moth, Kazu and his friend B said, "What a creepy moth," and entered the rest area, desperately trying not to look. Inside, the rest area was quite large, with several tables lined up. But the lighting was dim, and the floors and walls were dirty. The game console in the back also looked old. There was a TV at the end, and a man in his 50s was watching it with his back turned. Kazu felt something was wrong when he saw the man and tried to tell his friend B. But contrary to Kazu's worried expression, friend B said in a happy voice, "There's a group of 3 girls. Let's talk to them." When Kazu looked in the direction of friend B's gaze, there were indeed 3 girls in their 20s sitting around a table. However, the girls looked worried and seemed to be talking while looking around. One of the girls noticed Kazu and friend B and approached them. Friend B looked obviously happy, but Kazu felt a vague sense of unease. The girl approached Kazu and friend B and asked, "Is this the road to the Kanto region?" And their uncertainty turned to certainty. After hesitating for a moment and saying, "It might just be my imagination, but," she asked, Isn't there something strange about this drive-in? Kazu, who had felt a strange uneasiness since entering the rest area, agreed and decided to sit down with the girls and find out what was going on. He was happy to be able to talk to them, but more than that, he felt a mixture of fear and impatience, and his emotions were complicated. When we asked her about it, it seemed that she had been driving a car, just like Kazu and the others, but as the roads got narrower and less well maintained, she started to feel uneasy, so she decided to stop at this drive-in to see what it was like. However, when she entered the rest area, she felt something was wrong and got scared, so they discussed what to do. Friend B acted cool in front of the girls, saying things like, "It's okay, leave it to me," but when we asked her later, she said that she actually felt very uncomfortable at the time. After she finished expressing her discomfort, one of the girls suddenly blurted out, "That person in front of the TV over there." Kazu did as she said and turned his eyes to the TV, finally realizing what the strange feeling he had been feeling for a while was. He didn't notice it because he was too far away, but the ratio of the size of the TV, the table, and the person was clearly strange. When the person stood up, he was about 3 to 4 meters tall, like a giant. Then the playful friend turned pale and said, "What's this? He's too big, isn't he?" The girl then said, "And there's a photo booth in the back." When Kazu and his friend B looked towards the photo booth, they saw the legs of a woman in a long skirt peeking out from under the curtain, something they hadn't noticed when they arrived. According to the girl, the person in the skirt had been there since they arrived and hadn't moved. The girl continued, "Do you hear any strange sounds, like people talking?" As a matter of fact, Kazu had heard that sound many times since he had entered the rest area, and at first he thought it was the air conditioner or something like that. But when he listened more closely, he also heard what sounded like a number of people talking softly. He didn't know where the sound was coming from, but it was clear that something was wrong with this place. While the five were talking, the door to the rest area opened and friends and she walked in. Friend C was surprised to see the girls and asked, "What are you trying to do to pick up girls? Anyway, come over here for a second. I saw something weird," he said with a straight face, urging them to come out of the rest area. Kazu then told friend A and C that there were a lot of strange things over there, and took the three girls outside. Friend A then stood in front of a vending machine and said, "Look at this," pointing to a vending machine that sold cups of coffee. At first glance, it looked like a normal vending machine that displays product introductions and advertisements on an LCD screen, like the ones you often see at drive-ins. But there was one thing that was clearly different from a normal vending machine. The LCD screen was not a moving image, but a mouth that looked like a real mouth saying, "Welcome." Friends Ange also thought that there might be a real person inside, so they called out to the machine and knocked on it, but there was no response. Furthermore, no matter how you look at it, the area around the mouth, that is, the area other than the lips, looks like a normal LCD screen, which made friends A and B mutter in amazement, "What's going on here?" From what Kazu saw at the rest area and the strange milk vending machine, he was convinced that there was something strange about the drive-in. After telling friends A and C what he had seen at the rest stop, Kazu decided to go outside. But then a girl who had been looking towards the break room said in an excited voice, "Hey, look!" and pointed towards the break room while shaking Kazu's shoulders. Everyone there, including Kazu, looked in the direction. The girl was pointing and were speechless. The person in the skirt who had been in the photo booth earlier came out of the photo booth and walked towards them. What's more, the person in the skirt seemed to have no upper body. To be precise, her upper body was as thin as a stick, and it swayed back and forth as she walked toward them. It definitely wasn't human. Kazu and the others were at a loss for words when they saw this strange sight. After that, everyone ran outside in a panic. But when they looked outside, the monster in the skirt had disappeared into the bathroom. Kazu and the others had no idea what was going on and were simply overwhelmed. They decided to run away from the scene anyway. And after confirming that they could get into town by following the car's navigation system, they told the girls, "Just follow me and you'll be fine." But suddenly, they saw a crowd of about 60 people coming down from the woods at the back of the parking lot and heading toward them. Then, along with the figures, something jumped out of the woods and crashed into the truck parked next to them. Seeing it in the light of the street lamp, Kazu and the others saw an incredible sight. A huge caterpillar-like object over a meter tall. The impact of the collision shattered the window of the truck, and the caterpillar fell to the ground, wriggling its body while spraying what seemed to be a yellow body fluid. And it wasn't just one, there were about 7 or 8 in sight, and some of them seemed to be jumping towards them. Sensing danger, Kazu and his friends tried to tell the girls to get in the car quickly. But for some reason, the girls ran to the other side of the parking lot. Then the girls pointed to a prefabricated warehouse-like shed in the corner of the parking lot and told Kazu and his friends, "Let's hide here and wait." Seeing that the girls were panicking and unable to think calmly, Kazu and his friends strongly told them to just get in the car and brought the girls back with his friends. Then they saw a figure that had come quite close and a giant caterpillar jumping around. But the girls panicked and decided that it was dangerous to go alone. So their friends B and C got in the car and they all escaped from the drive-in. When they got out onto the road and looked back, they saw a caterpillar jumping around behind the girls' car. However, it seemed unable to keep up with the speed of the car, and eventually the caterpillar stopped chasing them. After driving for about an hour, they saw the lights of the city below them. At that moment, Kazu received a call from the girls' friend C, who was in the car. The girls wanted to go to the bathroom, so he asked them to park the car somewhere. So Kazu drove a little further and decided to park in what looked like a parking lot, thinking that the girls would be worried if something so scary had happened. Kazu asked if they wanted to go to the bathroom with him. The girls said they seemed okay, so Kazu agreed and hurried off to the bathroom. Kazu and his friends were worried, but decided to think, "We're almost in the city, so it should be okay." After that, the 4 of them discussed whether to go to the police or what to do next. But no matter how long they waited, the girls did not return. About 20 minutes later, Kazu and his friends thought something was wrong. So they went to the public restroom next to the parking lot and called out to them, but there was no response. However, they couldn't see inside the women's restroom, so they thought they might have passed by and returned. So they returned to the car, but the girls weren't there. Kazu and his friends began to feel uneasy about the situation. So his friends A.B. and she decided to go back to the restroom to look for the girls. And Kazu decided to stay in the car and wait so as not to miss the girls. While they were waiting, Kazu happened to look at the car and noticed that one of the doors was open. Huh? Maybe they are back, he thought, and looked inside the car. But there was no one there. Kazu saw that and thought, now that I think about it, that's strange. Was the door open the whole time? And looked inside the car. And one of the three girls' bags was about to fall on the floor of the back seat. When Kazu reached out to put his bag back, it fell to the floor and spilled all over the place. To make matters worse, his lip balm had fallen out. So he rushed to pick it up, only to find his three friends returning. This time he went to check the bathroom, but no one was there, so he came back. Then, feeling that the situation was getting serious, Kazu and his friends decided to call the police. Even though they were afraid that the incident at the drive-in would not be believed. While waiting for the police to arrive, Kazu and his friends took turns searching here and there. But they could not find the girls, and the police arrived about 15 minutes later. After that, Kazu and his friends told the police what had happened. And the police asked, "So where is the girls' car?" They replied, "It's parked next to our car," and looked towards their car, but for some reason, only the girls' car had disappeared. Confused, Kazu and his friends hurriedly searched the area. But only their car remained in the parking lot. The policemen looked at them with a clearly suspicious expression, which made Kazu and his friends feel uncomfortable. But Kazu remembered the bag he had spilled earlier, so he handed the bag he had left in his car to the policeman and said, "This is the evidence." Although he did not understand what he meant, he asked the policeman to look for the girls. The policeman took the bag as evidence, but didn't believe their story. And after asking Kazu and the others for their address and contact information, he sent them away. But the situation was more complicated than Kazu had expected. It seemed that the owner's identity was revealed from the notebook and cell phone found in the bag, and it belonged to a junior college student who had gone missing over 10 years ago. As a result, Kazu and the others were suspected of being connected to the crime and were questioned. But they were still children 10 years ago and came from different places. Of course, it was clear that they had nothing to do with the missing junior college student, and the suspicion was quickly cleared. However, according to the police, there was no such drive-in on the road Kazu and his friends took, and in fact, they could not even find an unmaintained rough road. However, the photo of the junior college student shown during the interrogation was definitely one of the three, and it seems that Kazu and his friends have not been contacted by the police since then. Now that I think about it, according to Kazu, there are many suspicious points about the girls. First, the girls had arrived at the dorm by the same route as Kazu and his friends, and should have arrived at the same time. But they never saw the headlights of a car on the road ahead of them. The second was the condition of Kazu's and his friend B when the girls called them. Normally, a girl would be afraid if two unknown men suddenly approached her in such an abnormal situation, and would not approach without caution. The third was how they escaped from the drive-in. At that time, the girls suggested that they see them off at a prefabricated shed. But there was no way that the three of them would go to the shed without prior arrangement in such an abnormal situation. The hut might be locked, and there's no way they would bother to go there when there's a car right in front of them. Finally, Kazu says that the more he thinks about why the three of them went to the bathroom by themselves, after finding themselves in such an abnormal situation, the more suspicious their behavior seems. Kazu is left with the horrible thought of what would have happened if they had done as they were told and barricaded themselves in the shed. And so this eerie story comes to an end. What on earth was this experience that Kazu and his friends had? Thanks for watching.